Beep, 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 beep. Hey up, 'tis I, once more. I pulled the dubras down, not dubras, these things, because, you know, winter's doing that, you thought it was over. And it's not. So, once again, or maybe for the first time, I can't remember which one I recorded first, we're going down under. We're going down under. We're going down under and to visit our Australian friends and to talk about something that has come from the Psychology Board of Australia, which is important and interesting. If you're in Australia, you can help with this. Okay, so let's go through it, what it is exactly. It's consulting on updating the competencies for general registration as a psychologist in Australia. Now, like one would have a set of skills that are required to be X, the same goes for psychology. So what they're saying is here, this is the general registration, what competences are needed for practicing psychologists in Australia. It is to seek views about the proposal. So this is a consultation. It's not happened yet. It's about that. So we're asking for feedback to which option you prefer, your views on the proposed structure, your views on the proposed organisation of the competencies, which is how good you are at something, and the views on the proposed transition to the updated competencies. How will we get there? So in essence, it's asking which do you prefer, which do you know, what do you think is worth doing? And how would we structure those in terms of competency frameworks? What would it look like? People must be able to do this and this and this. And then it's saying, what's your views on the proposed organisation of the 8 core competences that they're looking at? And then how do we integrate them into the existing framework for psychologists to practice? I hope that makes sense. So the online survey is for stakeholders who wish to provide brief feedback about their views. There are multiple choice questions and some limited free text options. As always, worrying. So, but they do say, if you wish to provide detailed feedback, we suggest you complete the feedback submission template, which is attached. Now, it's worthwhile taking a look at this, folks, and having a look to see what exactly it is that they're saying. So they're asking you to provide information when you do, but luckily one of my warrior teachers has sent me these details, has also completed a particular section of the form, which I think it's probably worth us going into. There were 3 questions at the end that was deemed important by the warrior teacher, and it may be the ones that you would also wish to focus on. I can't see the questions, unfortunately, but what we've got here, and I will put this into the Dubris as a piece of text, so you can, if you wish to, copy and paste it, but do it in your own words. There are 3 questions at the end. This is my response to those 3 questions. Question 1. It appears that you're imposing CPD regulations, that means continuous professional development, the idea that psychologists must continue to learn. And these are on proposed competency 7 and 8 that force psychologists to adopt the ideological tenets of critical gender and race theory, which would undermine professional autonomy, homogenized practice, and may impact patient care. This can lead to political polarization within the profession and a lack of intellectual diversity. Additionally, extending regulatory control into psychologist private lives, which was in proposed competency 3, is a dangerous totalitarian overreach. The regulation of personal practices is not within the scope of professional oversight. Now, this is terribly interesting here. Terribly interesting. Because what they are attempting to do now is to enforce the belief system on people in their private lives, and this is a clear example of that. Another example of that would be things like this report and support nonsense that's going on in Britain, which is this website you can go to and anonymously report any student or any university person or anybody for that matter for being, hateful or not thinking right. So these types of things, these types of what appear to be, we're helping people, they're not helping people at all. They're gathering data on who's doing wrong thing. That's what's happening, is gathering data on who's doing wrong thing. What will happen to that data is your guess is as good as mine. So it's this idea that actually we're just doing a good. We're not. You're telling you what you can believe in your own home. That's what they'll end up doing, because they'll make it impossible for you to discuss it outside your own home. It'll be absolutely impossible to discuss anything because they want to shut down conversation. So again, just to reiterate, the regulation of personal practices is not within the scope of professionals. And it's outside of their professional roles. My warrior teacher also says here that tilting therapy to focus on social justice issues may lead to a breakdown of the therapeutic relationship between psychologists and their patients. You bet. You bet. It will become a prerequisite for engagement. So thank you very much for coming. Do you believe in critical social justice, i.e. queer theory, gender identity, ideology and critical race theory? Oh, you do? Yeah, I can't be a therapist. Off you go. Or I can't have you as a therapist. They're separating the professions by those that conform and those that don't. Can you see what it is yet, kids? Now, patients may feel unheard or dismissed as psychologists prioritise their political views over the needs of patients. We're seeing this happening in the NHS. We've seen doctors, what was that Nutter? Breslin, right? And various other doctors getting very upset when their political belief system is not recognised as something that should be valid in the medical and professional domain. So it's happening in Australia like it's happening over here. This could damage the therapeutic alliance and have negative consequences for treatment outcomes and the mental health of patients. In conclusion, CPD regulations, continuous professional development, that compel psychologists to adopt critical gender and race theory can undermine professional autonomy, homogenise practice, and potentially impact patient care. Preserving scientific foundations, encouraging intellectual diversity, and maintaining focus on patients' needs is critical. Psychologists must ensure the highest standards of patient care while respecting the privacy and personal lives of professionals. Well, that's just one question there, focusing on 3 of the competencies, 3, 7 and 8. Question 2, over-regulating and policing regulations to incorporate cultural AHPRA psychology codes, that's the organisation that's doing it, to incorporate cultural psychology codes of practice could have unintended effects on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people and other minority groups seeking psychotherapy, as well as on the profession itself. One consequence, so why is this? One consequence is the oversimplification of cultural diversity. We're seeing this everywhere. The oversimplification of cultural diversity, the tokenization of clients, the overemphasis on victimization, the creating of victimhood, which we know is central to the CSJ movement, and the limited applicability of the regulations. Another concern is that this change seems to embed critical theory ideologies into psychological practice as a fact, or the only way to engage with societal difficulties and people in minority groups. Whenever any ideology, whether religious, social or political, is placed in regulatory domains, it requires zealotry to enforce this belief system. Absolutely spot on there from my warrior teacher. This could cause unintended harm to the fabric of the profession, its members and professional discourse, and could hinder diversity of thought and scientific psychological practice in these domains. What's happening here, that's question 2 of 3, that's been answered to. We're seeing here an attempt to inculcate critical social justice at the very base level of everybody's thinking, i.e. you can't think any other way. Gender ideology, queer theory, critical race theory. And then question 3, the response from my warrior teacher is, I'm concerned that the theoretical framework of intersectionality has been incorporated into requirements for competencies in the Australian psychological profession. I believe that this framework represents a specific ideological perspective. You don't have to believe it, my lovely, it does, right? A specific psychological perspective. A specific ideological perspective, and it should not be mandated as a dogmatic narrative in psychological practices. There are alternative approaches to engaging with issues of underprivileged and marginalised populations, such as the principles of liberal enlightenment and various religious perspectives. While critical race theory and its tenets of intersectionality offer a valuable lens through which to examine these issues, but only in the legal world, I added that bit. Only in the legal world, right? Gonna have to let go of that. We're all gonna have to let go of that one. They should not be treated as the absolute truth. I strongly object to any mandatory competency documents that contain ideological content in any guise. In its current form, the board's mandate is oppressive and totalitarian, reminiscent of Soviet style or Orwellian groupthink, and it should be revised accordingly. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how a warrior teacher writes. Okay? I think it's brilliant. That's a brilliant response. I'm going to put links to everything that you need in the Dubras downstairs. Go and have a look for yourself. And if you've got any interest at all, fill out the consultation. You know, that's how we get things changed, is by letting them know, no, you're not getting away with that. So this is somebody who's gone to it, has looked at it and analysed what they're asking to be done, and then said, hang on a minute, this is all built in. You've got to get good at reading media, folks, be that a text or a film. Because that's a major part of what they do, is they hide this stuff in media. They hide this stuff in film. They hide this stuff in documentation. They hide this stuff in books. And then they produce, letters which just lie about the whole thing in The Guardian or wherever it may be. So, yeah, there we are. Something important there for those down under in regards to the practicing of psychology in that great nation of theirs. So do go and have a look if you're down under. Down under? I think you've got to be on Australia to do it. Have a check, actually. I don't know now I've said that. Well, we'll soon see. Thanks very much to my warrior teacher for bringing that to my attention. It's a nice little informative piece there for those of us in Australia. Thank you very much for watching. Coffee, warrior teacher Substack. I'll see you later.